Welcome. I'm Kevin Miller. This is a podcast for your personal evolution. In this episode, we're questioning time management and how we perceive and value time. The ideas of time management and efficiency have never interested me much. I've always found them to feel constraining and tiring. But I also can't claim that I use my time as wisely as I could. So in this episode, we take some of our normal concepts of time to task and bring into focus, really bring them into accordance with what we actually value. So my guest is Richie Norton, and this was his second appearance on my podcast. Richie is one of those people I find is an influencer to so many influencers. He's been a really successful entrepreneur, but my experience is that everyone knows him as just this huge light and source of energy and inspiration. His first book that I had him on the show about was called The Power of Starting Something Stupid, and really had fun there. And this show, however, is regards to a second book that he wrote called Anti-Time Management: Reclaim Your Time and Revolutionize Your Results with the Power of Time Tipping. So what you're about to hear is what I feel is a very thoughtful conversation that begins with Richie observing that we as a culture have ever increasingly full calendars, but emptier lives. And the rest of the conversation is Richie's guidance and how you can change that right here, right now. You can find Richie's book, Anti-Time Management, of course, anywhere. His website is Richie, Richie, Norton.com. So coming up next is my conversation with Richie Norton on anti-time management. Let's evolve ourselves.
Richie, I got to admit, I haven't had a whole lot of people on the show more than once. This is the second time. And yeah, we mentioned that just at the top. It was March 2019 that I had you on to talk about your last book, The Power of Starting Something Stupid. Still love that book. Still love that concept. But man, I've been following you. I've been seeing you. You are just this huge vortex of energy, and I love it. And thanks for being here for the second time.
I'm so excited to be here for the second time. We'll just keep doing it. I have so much fun with you. We could do this forever.
Okay, deal. It's an ongoing
right.
Continue the Richie series.
Oh man.
Well, man, this one, anti-time management. Knowing you, having known you for a while, having followed you. Honestly, I was curious I'm curious right now. What was it that tipped you into this book with all that you've got going on, which is a lot, of saying, you know what, I want to invest myself into others on this specific topic because I'm seeing and experiencing, fill in the blank for me.
When I wrote my last book, The Power of Starting Something Stupid, I learned a lot after writing it. And that's what this book is for. I learned that people would say they wanted to start their quote unquote stupid idea. They wanted to start something important. They wanted to live a life on value. They wanted to live in all these kinds of ways. So they would start this thing to get their time and their freedom. But entrepreneurs, people looking to move up in their job, parents looking to create something, an experience for their family, they would do this stupid idea, but I realized they didn't really want it. They wanted what they thought would come from the success of that thing. And this happened over and over. They'd make money. They do incredible things, but it wasn't what they actually had in mind. And that fascinated me. So I thought, why are we always doing this 2-step? Why are we doing 10 steps to try and get what we want when we could just do what we want? Why can't we work from the goal instead of endlessly toward it? I realized that goals from experience are tasks, and goals outside experience are growth. So again, that last book, The Power of Starting Something Stupid, did well. Brene Brown did a blog post about it. You interviewed me about it. It's in over 10 different languages. It's still doing its thing. But with anti-time management, the idea is when someone wants time and freedom, they'll create something only to lose their time and freedom to it. It's like baking a cake without sugar and expecting it to be sweet. You can put like all kinds, if you're a keto person, you can put all kinds of things into the cake, right, to make it taste sweet. That's like trying to live a life with values and saying that one day you'll live them. Time just doesn't work that way. So I wrote this book kind of towards the future. Like, here's ways we can work differently. Here's how we can create a moat around our time. Here's how we can live really the way we want to. But what happened is, with the pandemic and all these other things, the world advanced technologically in a way that almost caught up with some of this thinking, some of this, these ideas that I'm sharing and we'll share now. But it's never been more relevant and more timely, and people are finding it to be, I don't know, a way to live a happy, joyful life that's super productive at the same time.
Well, you're here because it's timely for me. And because it's my show, I get to have on who I want and talk about what I want. Man, this is what I want to talk about. And I was just talking with Mark Tim, and some people know him from Ziegler Family, just incredibly successful guy. And he and Kevin Harrington, the Shark Tank guy, wrote their book, Mentor to Millions. And he's actually pacing outside my office on a call right now. I can hear him. And we were talking about you, and somehow we brought up, and this is just moments ago, Ben Hardy, Dr. Benjamin Hardy, who I know you know. Matter of fact, I saw a post like in the past 2 weeks, you were with him and his family.
I was with him and his family in Orlando, and I said, "Hey, do you guys ever see alligators around here?" And they're like, "Not really, unless we go to this one place. There's like 50 of them." And I'm like, "Okay, let's go." Well, they took me there, and just with his kids, and we were just having fun. Well, looking at alligators.
It's so him. When I had him on the show, it's been maybe 3 weeks ago or so, and we were talking just kind of the fruition of life and where he's at right now, and really got into talking about both of us. He and I kind of, and I don't like the term slowing down though, but it wasn't a slowing down in regards to, I want to produce less, I want to do less, I want to achieve less. I want to do more, but I finding myself right now just kind of stepping back and looking at time and kind of questioning. And that's what your book did for me of, for lack of better words, what the hell am I doing? And why? Why am I doing that? And what you just said was kind of the crux of what I came to in looking at your book and you talk about it, the final result. Yeah. What am I doing? What is the final result I want? Will that change what I am doing? Or will it just change the spirit from which I'm doing it? Where do you focus?
Oh, I like that. I like the way you phrase that too.
Well, thanks, because it came from your book, but I'll take credit for it. But seriously, when you look at that question, where do you find yourself siding? Is it trying to cut out some of the steps and change what we're doing, or change the spirit, or some spectrum of both?
I guess it's kind of both. But I like to say, like, it's assigning meaning to what you're doing.
Yeah.
The challenge is that people will assign meaning to something in the wrong way. So they'll say, this is too real. This gets too real, like to the heart. They'll say, I really want to have more time with my family. So I'm going to sacrifice my family right now so that one day I can have time with them. That would be assigning meaning in the wrong way, because when you sacrifice what you love for success, you get neither. Love shows up by how you spend your time. How you spend your time is how you show your love. Now, you know this, but the idea is stop managing your time, start prioritizing attention. And whatever you focus your attention on is what you're creating. And people go, well, I'm distracted. You can crowd out your distractions when you put priorities first. But again, people will say, and I'll give you some examples, but people will say that their priority is one thing. But we've learned since kindergarten to put our priorities, ironically, last. Yeah. Here's a jelly bean for you, 6-year-old. You can have it at the end of the day if you're good. It was never about the jelly bean. It was about control. So when people look at time management, they go, I can't wait. I'm going to manage my time better. I'm going to get my time back and be free. No, my friend. If you go back into the history like I did, and I didn't really know this, I wasn't planning on calling it anti-time management. I was just looking at what's happening. I was looking at my clients, what's working. I was looking at my own life. was looking at the tragedies that have happened, in my own experience. And I started realizing like, this is weird. Like people have full calendars and empty lives. Multimillionaires, they say that money is easy, time is hard. I'm like, wait, they say they talk about work-life balance and they don't have it. I'm like, what's going on right now? And I went back. I learned that time management wasn't just some thing invented by gurus. Not at all. Time management was decidedly created, designed specifically as a tool to measure every drop of blood, sweat, and tears from workers during the Industrial Revolution. In other words, it's not about controlling time because no one can control time. It's about who is in control of your time. And when you give up your time to, this isn't a right or a wrong, it just kind of is what it is. When you give up your time to your choices and you think they're going to give you a certain result or a certain consequence and they don't, you've given it up. That could be to a boss. That could be to your own doing or undoing, et cetera, et cetera. So when I realized that time management was a tool to control other people, I realized time management is to control others. Anti-time management, how you can get back the control. Instead of having time taken, you can create it. Every project I do, I have in my head, how can I create time with this project? I call it time flow, the same way you would create cash flow. And so you start thinking this way and it actually creates an entirely different decision tree in the way you make decisions, because instead of saying, I'm going to go down this line that's linear, you're going to say, I'm going to create a castle and I'm going to protect it with a moat, economically, strategically, in the way I work. And when you change how you're paid, you can change your life.
You, on this aspect of this myth of time management then, or this errancy that we have of how we view it, you got me thinking back to, I don't know who to attribute it to, but the concept that has gnawed at me for a long time of us all saying, oh my gosh, if I just had an extra hour in my day, right? If I could get a 25-hour day or clone myself. That was the one that I always went to. If I could just clone myself, because there's so much I want to do, which is kind of cool. I like that I have things I want to do. But to that hour aspect, or even to cloning myself, what would I do? Unfortunately, I'm realizing I would just do more of the same junk I'm already doing. And I would waste that hour doing the same thing that I do to waste other hours. And, I want to have grace for myself and have grace for others and not be just, not minimize anybody's status of life. But I'm always aware that there's somebody who's got less going for them, more going against them, who's producing more than I am and is having more fun at it and more fulfillment and more peace. And so again, I don't want to take that. And my tendency is just to, flagellate myself and be down on myself, but go, I probably can work smarter. I probably can be a little more efficient. Like you said, be less distracted or guard myself from that distraction. But I have to, and that's what I find myself doing as I'm reading your book. I gotta step back and audit what is the final result that I want to do. And that to me feels like there's the big kahuna that we generally just, it takes effort, man. I got stuff to do. I got to go. Right?
It's true. No, it's true. Anyone can do kind of they can just think back, do a little test. I like to think of things that sometimes we think are negative, but they might have some merit to them. And I think of procrastination. And we're really, down on procrastination because it's all these things. But if you think about it, like no one's more productive than a procrastinator with an impending deadline.
Dude, that's all I got going for me right there. You just summed up my entire motivational package right there. Yeah.
Right. So like if you start measuring from the point in which you actually begin the work, you know what I mean, to the point it's done, well, then your productivity is through the roof.
Totally.
It was a psychological thing that you were avoiding, doing low priority tasks to avoid the high priority tasks. That's a thing. So in some ways, having less time to do work, like you were saying, having less, you can do more because you crowd out those distractions. You bring in that power of hyper focus, But then again, you could get so hyper focused on even the wrong things. Covey would say, begin with the end in mind. He never said begin with means in mind, meaning a lot of the things we do the means have become ends unto themselves. Okay. So when you're talking about the final result or final cause, like, I know we'll talk more about goals and habits, but if you really think what's a goal, what's a habit, what's a strength, they're means to something else. But we've become so obsessed. Sometimes we are forever habiting and never inhabiting. I mean, have you ever practiced something for so long but never did the thing? I mean, that's a thing. And I'll talk about final cause, but let me explain it this way. And I'll go through it a little quicker than I normally, because we've talked about it before on another show. But my brother-in-law passed away in his sleep at 21. Out of nowhere, right? Gavin. And when he passed, it shook us to the core, because he was going to live for a long time, a lot longer than us. He was younger than us, and in America, we think that one day we're going to be 65 and we're going to retire. We're finally going to live. Now that mentality is starting to shift in the 21st century, but that's been the mentality now for almost 200 years. For 200 years, we've been taught, and this was because of railroads and governments wanting you to stay in one job. They incentivized us with tax breaks when you get taxed at a higher rate when you have more money to fund this whole plan. But the idea was you stay at this one job and then you get to be able to live. Now, we don't necessarily live that long, but sometimes we live longer. And sometimes we don't actually want the goals we had when we were 20, when we're 60. And sometimes they're irrelevant. And sometimes our spouse isn't healthy or we're not healthy. Sometimes we don't have the money we thought we'd have. So it doesn't actually make sense to do that. And it didn't make sense for him. A few years later, we had our fourth son, and he caught pertussis. And I remember when they pulled out those wires and tubes out of him in the hospital, and it was the worst nightmare you can imagine, as a parent. And I remember just being on my knees. My wife's in a rocking chair; she's holding him. My hands on his heart, and we're just singing lullabies and waiting for that last beat. Then someone asked me, what'd you learn from your brother-in-law and your son passing away? And I didn't know what to say, but I came up with Gavin's Law, which is live to start to live. Because when you live those ideas that are pressing on your mind, you really will start living. So we've just gone through a whole, fast forward, we've gone through this whole pandemic, and some people are like, did my life peak pre-pandemic? Is it over? And some people are like, oh no, now it's the next thing. I'm going to figure out my life. But a lot of people are wondering what's happening next, because the future is so unknown. Especially, I was just talking to someone from Eastern Europe, and he's like, no one can plan. No one knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Even in the countries around, they don't know who's going to be in control, and they can't plan. And you think, wow, when all these things are so unpredictable and life is so crazy and there's all kinds of tragedies, what happens? And I learned that grief is a tunnel, not a cave. And I learned we had foster kids come and go. My wife had a stroke and lost her memory. She got it back. I had a son get hit by a car. He should be dead, but now he's okay. He's riding big waves, and he kind of looks at it like he's Superman. Like, he didn't get hit by a car. He beat the car, So there's all these things that are happening in life. But when I came to this idea, I thought, does God hate me? Why are all these bad things happening? And I thought, love God unconditionally, keep the faith, go to work on the things that you can control. And there's not a lot, but there is something you can do, because when terrible things happen, you can assign positive meaning to them, even if you don't want to, even when it's hard. And when you do, something happens. You start realizing what actually matters. So instead of saying I have a goal, you say, what's the job of the goal? Instead of saying I'm going to get a job, you say, what's the job of the job? Instead of saying what are my strengths, you go, what is the purpose of these strengths? Because there would be no career transitions if people liked the strengths that they had. They want to do something else. They're over it, So all these things are happening. But I learned that when you move beyond conceptually goals, habits, and strengths into the place you really want to be, there's a million different ways that you can make it happen. So Aristotle called it a final cause, this result, where the idea is there's 4 causes. And the idea is that academics like to say it this way. Let's say you wanted to create a table. And side note, Aristotle called it like an acorn. An acorn becomes an oak tree. Okay. So the academics will say you need the materials. That's a cause. You need like the design. Oh, that's another cause. You need like an agent or someone to put it together. That's a cause. Then you have a final cause. So if you had the wood, the design, a person to make this table, you have a table. But then I would say, what's the purpose of the table? Because if the purpose of the table is to have it as a legacy piece for your family, awesome. But if it's to have some sort of cool experience with family or friends or business partners that are in town, you can do Uber Eats, man. Now, this is a metaphor for life. You can go to the food truck down the street. You can sit on the floor. You can go to the beach or the mountains. You can do whatever you want. The reason this is important is because people are laboring all the day long for this table when likely, honestly, more than likely, it was totally unnecessary for the experience. So they work their whole lives for something, never to get it or to get it so late that they put their priorities and their purpose last when it could have been first. And when you put it in the context of people and them leaving or them changing or things happening or experience, you don't have to wait 5 or 10 years to spend more time with your children. You don't have to wait 5 or 10 years to go on that big trip. You go, what about money? You go, yeah, what about money? That's exactly what I'm talking about. You can work from the dream, not endlessly toward it. And when you do, you make magic happen.
And that, you just gave a great depiction of somewhat of my pondering a minute ago of, as we look at the final result, of which we are also, here we are today, we're all doing these activities, and you're saying they have a final result. You're doing it for some reason. What is that final result?
Yes.
You have me looking and going, what are some things that I can get rid of like that? The point is that we eat, and for me and you, that our family comes together or friends or whatever, and that we break bread together. We can do that on the floor, on a blanket, at a restaurant. We can do I need to go buy, or do I need to build, a table to do that? Maybe not. So there's a question on setting something aside. Or on the other side, is there a reason? Because I love the analogy, Richie, because I live up here in the Rocky Mountains and literally cut down, when we built our house, cut down standing dead aspen trees. And I had this event that I was doing for a bunch of people, about 50 people. And I was going to have 10 of the leaders to my home that we had just built. So I have this pretty good sized house out in the National Forest. We did not have a table. No, we could have sat on the floor. I had a vision, Richie. I had a vision, and I had this table design. It's kind of almost a diamond type. It tapers at the ends. Cool. I built a table that will fit 14 people out of my tree.
Wow.
I've got a wood mill, and I had a vision of it. I was so excited. I had so much joy building it, putting it there, bringing it in. We ate at that table. It was unfinished. I didn't have time to do that, but I had, boom, there it is. We gather, and I have a picture of that gathering, and the meaning was so significant to me. So thank you for the analogy. But again, looking at going, okay, but both of those are significant as opposed to just going through the motions and not asking, why am I doing this?
Yes. Oh, I love, I've never had someone tell me they've actually done it when I use that analogy. So that's really cool.
Thanks.
But you actually make a really good point. If you know why you're doing it, if you know the reason you're doing it, that's different. Most people are lying to themselves. They're lying to themselves. I had a guy reach out to me. He's like, I'm making $250,000 a year. I'm an accountant. I want to quit my job because I want more time with my family. Great. What are you going to do? It's my first call with him. What are you going to do? He says, I'm going to start a gym. I go, you're going to start a gym? Yeah. He says he's going to start 2 because he needs 2 gyms for it to be profitable. It's going to take 5 years for it to work out. And I say, who's going to open the gym in the morning? right? Because now I'm getting real. And who's going to close it at night? And he said that he would. He's self-described as a micromanager. And I'm like, okay. And how old are your children? So I'm getting super real. Because remember, he told me originally the goal was to have more time with his kids. So he decided, think about this, and everyone listening should apply this to their own life. He wanted more time with his kids, so he decided he was going to start 2 gyms. So you causation correlation. You got
it's like the Mexican fisherman story.
That's right. Yeah. And so he says, I said, let's just do some math here. He's an accountant guy, right? Let's do the math that matters, the different kind, other than the ones, on paper, which also matter. And he goes, okay. And I go, so how old are your kids? He goes, 13 and 15. I go, so you're telling me that when your kids are 18 and 20, you're finally going to have time for them? And that's when it hit. Yeah. The problem is we actually design our plans intentionally to not get the result that we want, but we tell ourselves that it will. And I said, look, it's not about the gym. You can start 100 of these things. You need someone else to run it, or do it online, or do one of those things where they put the card in and it's good for 24/7 and they can come in and out whenever they want. Because he wanted to spend time in Europe for 2 years, 2 months out of the year, whenever he wanted it. So this is the ironic thing about everything I'm saying. This is what's interesting when I talk with, and I consult with venture capitalists and their founders too. When you bake in what you want from the start, you get more of it. When you bake in the sugar, the values from the start, you get more of it. It grows with you. So when someone starts a business, and it could be a job too, we'll just go with this for a second. When they start a business and they say, we're going to take out all these things so it can grow, and then one day we're going to get those things back and more of it, it doesn't work. When you put them in from the start, you remove bottlenecks, and it can grow bigger, better, faster, and more productively because you're not always in the way of it. You've created it around what you actually want to create. So you go, oh, we're in this business to change the world. Are you? Sure. But you're also in it for money. Yeah. So then you start looking at it and you go, are you telling me that you're going to do all these things and you really think that at the end of 5 or 10 years, all this other stuff's going to be true? They think that, and you go back 5 or 10 years. For the last 5 or 10 years, they look exactly the way you thought they would look? Of course they did. When you bake in, like, say, I'm just using these ones like time and other kinds of values. It could be anything you put in there. You get more of them because you cement systems in the way you work. So people are forced to have an exit because they're burnt out. And you talked about stepping back or slowing down, or I might even say stepping up. How, get that overview effect that the astronauts get when they look back at Earth and they see this fragile blue ball, and they're like, wow, this thing's amazing. Like, oh my gosh, like life is everything on Earth. When you take a step back like that, it changes the way you approach life. So someone climbing a mountain, let's say their goal was actually to see the sunset. They could have climbed it. They could have, used ropes. They could have gotten on a donkey. They could have driven a car. They could have been on a helicopter. Once you realize that you're actually trying to have this other experience, there's a lot of ways to do it. So don't get mad at your neighbor when they're driving up the mountain in a car and you're hiking when you chose to hike. If you chose to hike, you did that on purpose, unless you didn't. And that's an essential thought process when you're trying to create something new.
I really appreciate that part of your analogy was using a donkey.
You like that?
I do. I do. But it typifies you of literally questioning and thinking outside of the box, and how many opportunities can we figure out in order to get to that final cause. I mean, Richie, as I was reading and thinking about this, again, just to this question of looking at my priorities, thinking about my kids, which you just talked about with your analogy there. And I'm thinking, what are my core values as a parent? What do I want for my kids? And because we've gone through the gamut, man. We have done private school, we've done homeschool, we've done public school, we've done charter school, we've done part-time school, we've done everything. Obviously, I have some value for my kids and their education. And more so than that, just their life values and their life experience. And so we ebbed and flowed, but ultimately I have a value for, as a parent, I want X for my kid. So let's say that it involves an extracurricular thing, like, well, for me, soccer, dance, gymnastics,
Yep.
And just that perspective, I'm so aware of my propensity to go, oh man, I got to take my kid to this. And I'm questioning how much time I spend in the car as a chauffeur and thinking, I make a decent amount of time per hour. Is this really the best use of my time? Now, wait a minute. And you've got me coming, what's the final result here? And one, if it's a value for my kid, it may be not having them do that activity because it takes too much of my time and their time and we're not able to eat dinner together. I need to question if that activity is really worth the final value. If it is, then the reality in my spirit is, no, I don't have to take my kid to soccer. I am choosing to invest in this activity that I think will teach my kids skills, will help them connect socially, will teach them cause and effect, whatever. And what an honor. And I'm actually going to take them myself because I need the time to connect with them. I want to connect with them as opposed to paying somebody to just get them from A to B or stick them on a drone or whatever.
Yes.
Or a donkey.
Or a donkey.
Or give them a donkey. But to come back and go, what is the final result is going to dictate whether I have them do that. And then the spirit from which I do that, either way, it's a dramatic shift on, dude, I got to take my kid to whatever. And reading your book again brought back to me my own propensity to look at my time commitments and allotments as a victim.
Yes. Yes. You're right. We have to own the consequence as an actual choice. When someone says, I can't do this because I work at a job, I go, yeah, but didn't you? I'm nice about it, right? But then you go, didn't you spend 12, 16 years of school and tons of money to have this very job? I'm like, oh. So it's not the job, it's how you work. It's how you're controlled. Yeah, I get it's a toxic situation. Let's talk about that. And when you work from this final result, final cause, or final values, you can make better decisions or at least see it differently. Because when you're constantly playing the victim, and I get it, terrible things happen. I get it. I'm just saying when you look at it as a victim, you don't allow yourself to make a new choice. When you realize that you made a choice that created this result, for better or worse, you can also realize you can make a new choice. Even if it's just a simple conversation with someone at work, that can actually change things around for you.
Well, I did want to ask, and again, I'll cite that I've got a lot of kids. We've done a lot of things with, especially like that homeschool, public school, and all the gamut in between. Now, I have not spent time as an employee. I did for 2 years once, but a long time ago. But I've been an entrepreneur. But I feel like I can look at this sober. Well, my wife actually has just taken. She's in a field that she loves, and she has taken full-time hours.
Yeah,
and it's very odd. It's an odd reality to me to look at that now. Gosh, we haven't experienced that in ever really.
Mm-hmm.
But just to look at that, because as we look at the feeling as a victim of our circumstances, if you do have a job, a 9 to 5, traditional job, you have traditional hours generally. If you're going to have your kids in public school, it is what it is. And I'm looking at it now and it dictates a lot. Now I'm at a place where I can choose that or not. And we right now, we actually are, and we're playing with that. And there's pros and cons. Again, we're looking at the final value of the result and going, okay, with everything considered, this is what we're doing. But if we submit, is that the best word, to one of those specific, so here in America, those are our primary, primary time, what would you say? Containers is a traditional job, if you do that, and school. And I'm almost going to say school is more of that, because even the traditional job, we have people in traditional jobs with flexible hours. And as you talked about, we have a lot of entrepreneurs who have just bought into the 9 to 5 anyways. It hasn't changed. They may be working more.
Yep. No, it's true. So when people are entrepreneurs or they move from employment to being an entrepreneur, one of the reasons they don't find time in it is because they've brought traditional time management systems with them. That's something to remember. The other thing is in my experience too with our kids, life's dynamic. Things change. So one year they're in public school, another year they're not. In the middle of the year, we might pull them out or put them back. We've done like a little hybrid thing with some people in the community. We've done homeschool with, on the internet. It's fascinating because I realized as I would tell the teachers or the principal, we're going to go on this long trip. We've had this tragedy in our family. We're going to go on this long trip. We're going to huddle up. We're going to learn. We're going to experience. We're going to see all these things. And they would be nice about it, but they'd also have all these problems about them being out of school. And, you'll get letters from the state. You'll get all these things telling you to realize, this is fact. Look it up. I'm sure every state's different. But you start realizing, I get that you can get more education somewhere else, but this is about money because they get paid based on the percentage of time a kid sits in the seat. Yeah. And so then they have to measure for that. So they have to control that. And so they have to tell you need to be at school, even though another experience would be better for them. So we realized, you know what? Let's just take them out of school and avoid the whole situation and put them back in when we're back. And everybody's happy. Yeah. So when you start thinking a little different, just a little different, you can come up with the trick to all this, because everyone's situation is different. Everyone's like, I can't apply this. And I go, I get it. You think you can't, but you can. It's ask a better question, get a better answer. Because your brain's like a calculator. So you go, this is the thing. Okay, that I can't do this. You're right. You can't do it. But if you say, how can I do this thing, or what can do this thing, or who can do this thing without this terrible thing happening by next Tuesday, your brain likes puzzles and it figures it out, or it doesn't. Sometimes it takes a little more time, but you have to ask the question to open up a space in your mind for it to fill in with new ideas. This is essential. Everything we're talking about is really about thinking differently. That's really what it's about. Because when you say, I want this result, and you're going to work for it for a long time, and then you realize you don't get it, and you already know that's going to happen because looking back, it also didn't happen. And you can go, you know what? What if I just did the thing? What if I just did it? It's so hard. Yeah, let's talk about that. Because now you're talking about things that actually matter. Because 10 years from now, you're going to have the same problem. This is so hard. Same problem.
It's interesting, Richie. I can't say that I've made some definitive or gained a definitive concept on this, but I've grappled with it so we do have a lot of kids, and I feel like, a lot of my time has just been spent being a parent, being a spouse, raising a family. And for me, it's been difficult to make work a priority to a certain degree. And I don't want to justify that, but it is curious as I have so many kids. I still have some younger kids, but they're more and more self-sufficient. So here I am, 51, feel like I'm 31. Yep. And looking forward to a lot, but the kids are going to be older, and they're going to start but I've got 4 out of the house already. And I'm looking at it thinking, I'm going to have a lot of time, a lot more time to work. And if I want to grow this great, illustrious career, not that I'm complaining about where my career is now, but I'm going to have a lot of time. My kids, coming back to that in your analogy with the kids, they are there now. And if we're going to camp, it's probably going to happen now. I'm already struggling with my older kids and trying to put the next camping trip together, man. And they've got jobs and school, and some of them have kids already. And that feeling of the difficulty, or not the difficulty, I want to say that the error again of putting things off, as opposed to, man, we need to do the vacation now. We need to do the experience now. And I've seen you do that to a significant degree.
Yes. Well, think about this. Let's go with the vacation thing for a second. So anyone listening to this, if this sounds super foreign, which I'm sure it does, but you can relate to it. Like if you're going on a trip, typically someone will get, I don't know, several weeks, maybe even a month's worth of work done right before they leave. The reason I'm mentioning this, because you have a lot of kids, and you say that means you don't have a lot of time for work. And I get everybody's situation is different. I get it. But you're also hyper productive. Like you're doing things that are like amazing. And you go, wow, because we already know that if someone if someone works from the center, work becomes how they're paid, it becomes the center of their life. And they work. This is traditional. This is 99% of people. Work. On the fringe of their life is their family, their friends, their priorities, their purpose, the things they like to do. Reverse that or invert it, so to speak. Like you're doing. Family, purpose, time, values, travel, whatever it is most important. If that's the center, you're right. You do have less time for work, which means if you're a responsible person, you have to be creative to get the same amount of work done or more in less time. Now, that model can be flexible, but think about that. If you had a choice, which would you choose? The one where you're doing a bunch of stuff, and it might be meaningful, like work is a high. I get it. You can get high on work, but forget why you're working. This is if you think, am I going to work forever to have a little bit of the things I am actually working for the sake of my work? Or am I going to put the sake of my work in the center and have less time for it, but get more done? This is weird.
Yeah.
This is weird. You go, how is that possible? You go, you and I both know that the average 9-to-5er, as long as it's not like a service thing, it's like they can just, power through and get work done. They can get that same work done like from 9 to 5, maybe in an hour or two on the same day. But why does it take longer? Because their boss told them they have to stay there the whole time. That's why. It's the same with a lot of the things that we do. Work expands the amount of time given. That's Parkinson's law. And so then you narrow it down to the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. What's the 20% I really want to do? I really like to do, not just the stuff I'm good at. Because if you took a piece of paper and on one side you wrote down everything that you do, you would see everything like professional and personal. You would see that that's how your life shows up to others. They don't see your past. They don't see what you're thinking in the future, even though you do. They only see what you're doing. That's all your kids, your family, your coworkers, neighbors see. But if you were then to say, what do I like to do, and circle a few of them and put them on the other side of the piece of paper, you see how imbalanced your life is. Here's everything I'm doing versus what I want to do. But if you were then able to delegate, outsource, eliminate those things that you don't really want, oh my gosh, you just got 80% of your time back. And then you can double down on what you want. And this is a weird thing. I know I'm different in saying this. The reason I say what you like to do, what you want to do, is because this helps you better identify your purpose and meaning than anything else. Because people don't like what they're good at. If you take a strengths test and it tells you you're good at laying bricks, you will continue to lay bricks forever. And you will say, I want to do something different. Teach me something else, business. And they will say, no, HR says you took this test and said that you're good at laying bricks. We're not going to move you laterally. We're not going to move you up and down. This is what you're going to do. You think that's not real? Ask any person that's coding right now. Yeah. It gets super real when you make it real. When you realize you can learn new things. Architects don't build buildings, they draw them. General contractors do not build houses. They don't even pick up a hammer. They sub the whole thing out. So you can architect and become a contractor of your life, meaning you can do anything you want whenever you want if you just think a little differently.
Well, you remind me, man, I need to talk to him again. I keep talking about him. Jonathan Fields, you probably know Jonathan.
I do.
And his latest book, it's been a year or more, and I had him on the show, Sparked. And his Spark type test, I continue coming back to that just based on what you're talking about, to think about where am I the best, where am I best used? And, in his, it was as a maker. I love taking an idea and bringing it to life, creating the structure of it, kind of a framework of it. Then I'm kind of done. I need to stay in that mode, of getting to that point. And then that's where I need, not just where I may be. I mean, I'm good at sales. I don't really want to do that though. That's where I would be put in if I was in that workplace.
There you go.
And in that, and you talk about this right at the beginning of the book, and I want you to speak to it and give some help, I guess, because it is frustrating, especially for somebody in traditional employment, though I think it probably happens a lot, way too much in even being self-employed. We look at managing our time so that, and this is what you say right in the book, so we manage our time so that we can get more done And that's what we do. We just do more in that time. It doesn't really, again, what is that final result? Am I trying to save time so that I can tend to my health, so that I can have some me time, so that I can invest in this person? Because if you're in that place working for somebody specifically and you just get more done, they're stoked. All right, keep doing it. We'll give you more. We'll give you more. And 5 years later, the time management, you're just doing more, kind of goes back to that perspective that is mind-boggling to think if we showed our grandparents the efficiencies that we have today, they would assume that we only work 20 minutes a day. And of course, we work twice as much as they did. They did dusk to dawn, and now we're burning, we keep the lights on, and it's not working. And the time, that's what you brought me to in the book. I mean, the time management is not working. I mean, it's like proof. It's just like saying that all the knowledge that we have about health and wellness here in America, is it working? According to the stats, apparently not. We're sicker and sadder than we ever have been.
Wow.
So that must not be the knowledge of it. Must not. There's something else, and I feel like that's what you're bringing us to. But the time management is a myth.
Yes.
It's a myth. And you have me, and I'm playing with the thoughts that you're giving me out of the book, and I'm thinking, I don't need time management. I need priority management. I need I need values management.
That's right. So if let's think like kind of a framework here, and I'll try and slow it down a little bit. So if you were to first say, it's not just your purpose or your why. If you were to really say, let's break it down. Let's make it super real. If you were to say, even over the next 2 years or 90 days, what's my professional? And let's just use normal words that we use every day. What's my professional goal? And you write them all down. There could be 10 of them. What's my personal goal? I call it the 4 Ps. What's my people goal? People in my life. What's play? Like the things that re-energize and make me feel alive. You write them all down. You might have, let's say you have 40 things written down, 10 in each quadrant, let's say. And you just circle the only one out of each area: professional, personal, people, play. You'll come up with 4 main priorities. These aren't necessarily your purpose, but you have these 4 main priorities. Then you ask yourself, why do I want these things? What's the goal of these things? Then you start figuring out your purpose. So now you have a purpose aligned with 4 priorities. You can attach them to 4 different projects, because a project has a beginning and an end. I'm not writing a book. I'm an author. I have a book project. That's very different. I am this person I am healthy is very different than I will be healthy. I am a runner is different than I will run. These are very different thought patterns. And then you decide, how am I going to get paid doing this thing? You can still get paid first, but when you decide how you're going to get paid from, think about that, the high meta goal, this purpose, the priorities, projects, payment, then your pay is in alignment with what you want to do. The opposite of that is to say, I'm going to get paid by living in New York, even though you don't want to be there. And now your lifestyle is determined by that area, what you do, when all you want to do is be fly fishing in Montana. You could be fly fishing in Montana from the start if you wanted to. See, you start with the goal of the goal, and then you align it with how you get paid. This will change the way you operate, because how you pay, whether you're sick or have a bad relationship, you still have to go to work. So how you get paid determines what you do, when, where, how, and honestly, like, why. It wasn't always this way. This happened in the Industrial Revolution, and now the post-Industrial Revolution. Now I think even post-management, we're bringing it into that. But if you really want to lead a life on purpose, it's your life is led by the questions you ask. So ask a better question, get a better answer, and use this framework, and you'll be able to get your time back.
And to hearken to Andy Andrews, we're getting in the deep end of the pool here. You, in the beginning of the book, talk about regrets. And it's been a topic that keeps coming up. I had Dan Pink on this year, and The Power of Regret is his book. We talked about that. And I talk a lot about Bronnie Ware. She's the Australian hospice nurse who wrote the book, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I'm just kind of enamored by that. But both of those are hers are people on deathbed. They're looking at regrets in the past they can't fix now. Dan was talking about regrets people have now in their current life, and he did a broad spectrum of demographic and whatnot. And there are things that maybe people can address. You got me thinking maybe more concisely about the exercise of going, look, if things stop now, whether I die or I just can't produce. And I think about that. I'm a very physically oriented person. So I think, man, if something happened and I just can't produce, what would I regret right now? Right now. And,
Yes.
and I'm looking at that result. What would I regret? What have I not done as a parent, a spouse, as a man, as a friend? What are the things I'm not addressing? But hold that too, because the whole living like there's no tomorrow thing is kind of, I mean, we can't do that. Because if I'm going to do that, I'm not going to shower or do laundry or go grocery shopping, you know? But that's a great tension right there to look at and go, okay, I'm not going to take today for granted, but my gosh, if it did end, what do I regret?
Yes.
How can that not change?
Yes. I like to tell myself that future regret is today's imperative.
Okay.
Like if you already know you want to do this thing and you don't do it, you're going to regret it. Then it becomes the priority of today. It has to be. I interviewed hundreds of people approaching retirement or in retirement, and they would say something similar. I waited for a time when I would have more time, more education, more money, more experience to do this thing, only to find out that when I'm finally here, I still don't have enough. I still need more time, education, experience, and money. And it's like, wow. And the quote unquote successful people, they started where they were with what they had. And you know what? If it didn't work out, so what? At least they didn't. It's a harder experience mentally to have something not work out 20 or 40 years from now when you've been holding on to that hope than it is to learn you don't like it or it's not going to work out right now. You can live multiple lives. You can live a polymathic life. I mean, you go like these polymaths, these people, Da Vinci and stuff. You're like, yeah, they did lots of things. That's exactly what they did. Were they geniuses? Of course, they also did something. Lots of different things. And that's what's cool, is life is multidimensional. You can do all kinds of different things. Future regret is today's imperative.
And you talk about that. You use the story at the beginning of chapter 1 or 2 of the, is her name Syra?
Syra, yeah.
Syra.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
This girl in homeless and bad store, whatever, and she wants to be a rapper. So she goes this thing. She's terrible at it. So it reminded me of, I've had so many relevant people because I guess I'm interested in the same thread. So I've had relevant people. So I had Elliot Bisnow on the show recently from Summit Series. And he talks about his initial foray into being an entrepreneur. He was horrible. I mean, he created a little company and a t-shirt company and didn't sell one t-shirt. Zero. Nothing. I mean, zero success. He started a consulting company and did not get one client. I mean, zero success. Wow. And here she is, and she goes up on stage to be a rapper, and everybody says, "You're not just bad, you're horrible." We don't do that. We don't try. We're not bred as a culture to go try things. And it's really been on my mind lately, Richie, because I realize that I do a lot of these adventurous things. They're pretty much all in my comfort zone. I'm kind of doing things that I've got some groove in. I'm trying to think, like, when is the last time I went and did something I don't know how to do at all? I cannot remember. And I'm kind of feeling not shame in a bad way, but shame, like I'm missing something, man. I am missing out on some, what am I missing out on, in my own growth and in my own opportunity?
Yep. No, it's true. That's why I love podcasts and podcast guesting. And I love your show, because people listening to this, they are able to expand their comfort zone, think of new ways, think of new things to do. Sometimes just having someone else give you an idea is everything. When I was a kid, I was 16, I wanted money. And I'm like, you're a kid, you want money, you want to spend it, you want to do your thing. And I told my dad I wanted a job. And my dad says, "You don't want a job." I'm like, "What? How could you tell me that? You're my dad, I'm supposed to do this stuff." He was an entrepreneur. Because the job I was going to get was, which I have done, by the way, picking up trash at the fair, or working at the local sandwich shop, and doing these kinds of things. And it was summertime, and he goes, "No, you're a kid. You're going to be working your whole life. I remember this. You're working your whole life. Your job is to have fun and to get good grades." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I want money. Like, what am I going to do?" And I'm from San Diego, and he says, "Go to El Centro, which is like 3 hours away, to where the farmers are, and ask." This is so weird. The idea here is I could never have gotten this idea on my own. It never would have came. He said, "Go to El Centro and ask the farmers if you can buy the irregular sized watermelons, because they can't sell them to the grocery stores." And I said, "Okay." So like my brother, who was 14, 2 years younger than me, we took out the seats in our family van. We drove down to El Centro. We bought all these watermelons. It was 4th of July. We came back and we sold them to we called our friends' parents. We just, we did the thing. We went to the park. People showed up, and we made more money in one day than we would have worked in the entire summer for minimum wage. And I didn't think much of it at the time. I was looking back, and I was like, it wasn't just a don't trade your time for money thing. That was an entirely different way of thinking that affected probably my whole life. Because all of a sudden I realized and had courage and confidence that, oh, you can make money. It's something you can do. A lot of people don't know that or believe that because they've never had it modeled. So I was fortunate in that way. And so your podcast, I think why people love you and why it's so, you're amazing, is because you're modeling these things for people, and showing them other people that are doing it. And that's where it starts. That's how the acorn becomes an oak tree, like getting alignment.
Man, thank you. You're gracious. I keep using the word privileged. I mean, I grew up with parents and I got to see that firsthand. I feel like I got that experience and the faith from trying things and doing things. I got it on a silver platter. I really did. I mean, I got to admit that. And I've again continued just feeling fortunate to have a blue zone of people like you that I get to commune with that are also doing those things, and it makes it so much easier. But I'm sensitive to, as I look at the populace out there, that's not most people's exposure, and it is very daunting to look out there and look at doing something different, thinking different. It takes some effort, and it's going to cause some friction to go out there and not just accept the general timetables and timelines. And Richie, once in a while, not a lot, but there's sometimes I get kind of tired of making the next a little decision fatigue,
Totally.
I love that I get to wake up every day and I get to do exactly whatever I want. Sometimes I kind of get tired of having to figure out, what do I need to do to?
Can't someone just tell me what to do?
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. But that choice is always there. If you need me to boss you around, just let me know.
That would be, that should be like an entrepreneurs group then every once in a while you can check in and go, guys, I need a day off, man. Somebody's just telling me what I'm, which to some degree. Yeah. And that's why we pay coaches and consultants and have people come. I'm about to do that here at the podcast and kind of join some networks and some teams and get some help, because I'm really, there's some things I'm tired of figuring it out, man.
Yeah.
I want to do my art over here.
Yes.
And I'm tired of figuring this stuff out. I've got to offload, but to do that, I'm going to give up a little control. I'm going to give up.
Yes.
There's more than a little money.
Yes. Yes. And it's intentional on purpose.
Yeah.
Because it's in alignment with what you're trying to do. People will spend time and money on things that are not ever going to get them what they want, because it's not on purpose. It's not in alignment. It's not fit to purpose. So that's what this whole thing is. Some of the people I work with executives, I work with entrepreneurs, I work with everyday people that are doing all the things they do. But some of the most interesting people are creatives on YouTube, and they have 1 million subs or more. I have several of these clients. And they're going crazy making these videos. They look like they're having fun and happy, but they're really like having a hard time. It's stressful. It's a lot of work to edit and create, and it's constant. It never ends. And we'll free up their time using these principles I've been sharing, only for them to go back to make more videos with that extra time. And the thing is, no judgment. If you're going to do it, know what you're doing. If you're going to do it to say, I need more time with my family, then do it for more time with your family. But if you're going to do it for more work, that it works that way too. You can do more of the things you pay attention to. Are you paying attention to the right things?
You mentioned a couple times on this about getting real. Okay. And I'm thinking about, let's get granular with this. I don't do that well. I'm great with concepts. Then when it comes to that, okay. So we turn the microphone off, and then what do we do different? Well, I didn't get down that far.
Right.
Concepts and so. So people are going to hear this. It's going to sound good. I would tell them, shameless promotion, get the book. I mean, I feel like we probably hit on like 1/100th of the book. I mean, we're talking concepts, the concept of it. Now in the book, it's anti-time management. The tagline is reclaim your time and revolutionize your results with the power of time tipping. We haven't even gotten into that, and we could do a 3-hour show.
We could,
but it is a different way. I mean, Richie's here with obviously a different paradigm of looking at time and what time management is and isn't and doesn't exist and what we can really do. So, but in that, I mean, we're going to hear this, and we're all going to wake up. We're going to hear this message, hear these concepts, wake up tomorrow morning. What would you say is the biggest, or one of the, if it's hard to name the thing, the biggest enemy to changing tomorrow's trajectory? We're all going to wake up. Here's tomorrow. We heard this great message from Richie about this. Thinking about my values. I'm thinking about my priorities. And the day starts, and we have the biggest challenges that come along that put us right back where we were.
I think it's thinking big without thinking small. You have to do both. I always feel like I'm thinking too small, but sometimes you can think too big. What happens is I have this big vision of all these things I'm going to do, so I don't know where to start. But it starts with one. So let's say someone says they need to make more money. Well, it depends. You need to pay your mortgage in 5 days. Is that the thing? Or is it like money over the next year? Those are two different types of work. One can be immediate and one can take some time to build. If someone says they need to get paid, when someone tells me they haven't been paid in a while, one of the first things I'll ask is, when's the last time you asked someone for their debit or credit card? Because that's what happens to get paid. And they spend weeks, months, years, quote unquote, working. And it is work. But if they define work as getting paid and they're not getting paid, have they worked a day in their life? That's a real thing. So to answer the question, it's what's the one thing that is in alignment with the big goal that you can do right now? It might be as simple as an email or a text to someone telling them that you're going to do that thing so they hold you accountable. Or it could be as simple as booking that ticket to Italy so that you can go there with your family, which will create a forcing function to make you work differently so you're prepared when you go, so you can make money while you're there or when you're back. The one thing, the one domino, the one thing that'll push over everything else to that one thing, and it will help make all the other decisions for you without you even thinking about it.
That's a great place to end, but I'm going to ask one more question.
Yep.
And it's a little bit coming full circle to where I started. As you walk with people, regardless, whether it's your execs and celebrities or, whoever you're walking with, and they understand and engage with this message, with this concept, where would you fall on they end up saying, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. No, they wake up that next morning with this paradigm shift. Do they say no to more things or yes to more things? Is that a fair question? Kind of the getting rid of the good for the great. Is it, do you find more of a practice of, as people embrace this, they start saying no to more things that don't line up, that aren't necessary, or yes to some things that they weren't doing? Obviously a combo of both, but I'm just interested on where you would say the spectrum often falls.
Okay, that's a really good question. It seems like it would be an easy answer. Let me say this. Like it's
not easy for me as I'm thinking about myself. That's what I'm asking.
Okay. You'll never be more productive than cutting out the dumb things that you're doing.
Okay.
Right? So there's that. But what I found is, well, if you look at the book, on the cover, there's a line that goes into a prism, and then there's a bunch of different other colorful lines that come out of it.
Yeah.
The idea is how one decision can create a ton of different results. Whereas if you look at it backwards, People are doing a lot of different things to try and only get one result, and sometimes they don't get any of it. So to answer that question, I might frame it differently. I might say, what do you care about? Because first of all, you can't help people that don't care. I learned that from Marshall Goldsmith. What are they going to do? There's other things for them. You can do your best, but until they care, it's hard to make for themselves to make change. When someone does something they care about, they end up doing more of the things they care about. So yes, you might be saying no to a lot of things because they're not in alignment and you thought they were. But when you say yes to the one thing that is the thing that will, take you to the next level, you end up receiving lots more of unexpected, happy, joyful opportunities. It's like if you're familiar with Marie Kondo and the tidying up, and the magic and the joy, it's like that. It's like time tippers, people that read this book, Anti-Time Management, they treat time the way Marie Kondo treats clothes and closets. They look at what brings them joy and what doesn't. They get rid of the stuff that has served them, and they do more of the things that will continue to bring them that love and joy.
Richie, thanks, man. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the effort that you put into this project. It's reorienting how I'm thinking about some things that I've got going on, and good timing for me. I hope it is for everybody listening. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man. That was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. And let me start that again, Mike. Thanks so much for joining us in this discussion. And again, Richie, R-I-C-H-I-E, Richie Norton. And the book that was my muse here is called Anti-Time Management. Reclaim your time and revolutionize your results with the power of time tipping. And again, Richie's website is richienorton.com. Till next time, here is to the evolving you.
Yeah.